I think our biggest strength is actually our macro play right now. Whenever I see like on Twitter or in some videos that people analyze our team, they're like always, oh yeah, this is a cheesy team. Or like a team that can win best of one maybe, but not the best of three. They don't even know our team. Like this is complete nonsense actually.
It's clean, it's clinical, it's calm, it's collected, it is dominating. This is the Unicorns of Love style.
I think this comes from mainly that people just look at our past and saw those crazy picks, and yeah, in the past Unicorns haven't been a heavy macro team. Like I agree on this, everyone on the team does. We improved on this so much, and people still have the mentality that we are just like a crazy team that does whatever, but this is actually not true.
This might be the split where they're looking at MSI, and then potentially for next split, looking at Worlds, because they have become a top team, a consistent top team in Europe right now, which is not something we could say about Unicorns in the past.
I don't think that people necessarily underestimate us. We are just a really calm, collected team that's like trying to bring out the strategic parts of the map, right? Like to play the map like 100% correctly. And this is like 99% what we talk about when we review games. I think they're putting us like in the wrong box of a team, and yeah, this is like really not nice to see actually for me. I don't think we do yet understand the game on the highest level, but I think that we're really closer than any team in EU right now. But yeah, we try to work harder to get to the highest point.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the European LCS, where the Unicorns of Love and Splyce are fighting for a chance to be at the Spring Split Finals in Hamburg. Now, we have just released a second wave of tickets, so head over to eu.lolesports.com for more information on how you can join us there. But the Unicorns, they find themselves down one game here, and talking about trying to play it out clean, that game, that was crazy, but there is a lot of decisive play stress.
Yeah, we're going to need to see the team that Exile was visualizing as the Unicorns come out in this game if they want to bounce back. Now, Splyce have selected the red side for this game. Of course, last game they were on blue side. We'll see whether that throws a loop for the Unicorns draft. But the analysts had a lot to say about this setup for the Unicorns of Love. The Caitlyn instead of the Ashe into the Malzahar, that's probably not going to happen again.
Yeah, I think we can expect to see some changes in the pick and ban for sure. That was, unfortunately for Samix, his first loss on the champion in this spring split, but he just wasn't able to get nearly as much done. We talked a lot about the mid laners, talked a lot about the tops, the jungles. It was those three roles in both team comps that really shone throughout it all, but I guess you can't really discount too much the bottom lane of Splyce because they were doing work in the siege.
Yeah, Mickey was constantly catching out Hylissang, punishing him for being out of position, or at least, not reading the play right. We saw Senkux getting the kill out of the control warded bush where Hylissang was stepping through, but honestly, Splyce, so much of what they were doing was coming from Wonder's ability to start fights. Trashy was getting in the mix as well. It was actually quite good to watch out of Splyce.
Well, he was sticking on him too. Wonder was basically using Flash on cooldown to try and get kills, and more often than not, it actually worked out here. And it was the big question mark, were they going to be able to snowball? And he looked at picking a tank in the pick and ban phase, and we thought, maybe they're going to focus a little bit elsewhere. No, definitely not the case.
Yeah, and you can see that the priority changed and shifted throughout the draft. There was a lot of bans towards the Renekton, that type of champion. We saw Camille banned out as well. Splyce seemed raring to get into the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they can secure a 2-0 here, it puts them in a really good position to try and move up the standings at the end of the split. If they get 4-0 on this week, if they're able to finish this off cleanly against the Unicorns and then take out H2K later on, they can actually get themselves a guaranteed second seed.
Yeah, and
at the very least.
That's at the least, right? And then it depends on the rest of the results, but there's a possibility of ending up first. It's a slim one. But
well, I mean, you have to look back at them in their summer form and over at Worlds. Like, they were looking like one of the best teams in Europe, and they're trying to make that statement yet again. Are they back to that form? We asked that question. Based on how they played in game number 1, I think you can make an argument.
Yeah, you can start making that argument, and it's a slightly different form. Summer was all about 1-3-1 and great setup, and like that was the intention partly for this game, is that side lane control. It didn't play out that way. We got skirmishes for about 10 minutes, and then Splyce won the game. But we'll see whether Splyce go to the 1-3-1 setup with the double teleport or whether they'll shy away from that.
Yeah, well, they definitely seem to have a lot of weapons in their playbook, and this is the new and improved Splyce, though. In the last several weeks especially, we mentioned it so many times that they have become a team that loves to play the early game, and that was not Splyce of days gone by. They used to wait 15, 20, a little bit longer sometime before they would actually make a whole lot of plays on the map, and we used to talk about their late game team fighting being such an impressive thing, and that allowing them to win these late games. But this is a very different Splyce. It's a new day. It looks like they're going to gather around for a huddle.
Maybe it's taking a moment. Here I'm being told we need a little more time before we get into game. I don't know what this is.
I mean, it looks like a rousing Yamato Cannon speech, if you ask me.
So I'm being told there is a problem with the headset of Yamato Cannon, so they have to catch each other up on the draft before we get in, which is why we're having the team talk motivation. Maybe we should just try not to be too loud, otherwise.
Yeah, we won't give anything away here.
Yeah.
So keep it on the down low. Guys in the audience, please. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. This isn't Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's not Ask the Audience on the draft. It's,
No, don't give anything away. Oh,
take
man.
a 50-50. Cut out half the champions.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell these guys were cheering pretty loud as well. And obviously, there's a lot of them in the audience, the Unicorns of Love fans, the Love Herds crew, but not the only ones as well. And Splyce, you know, they have built themselves a fan base over the performance that they have had in the previous year in the European LCS. I mean, it's still one of the newer orgs, but they've made a splash. Yeah,
they have made a splash. And really kind of created for themselves quite the year-long history, at least. Now, it's like you look at it and not many teams have done that. G2 is the exception. G2 came in and were like, okay, we already have this history in other esports of doing very well. Now it's time to really crank up our League of Legends team. There was a lot of time where G2, when they were Gamers 2 previously, G2 Esports then come in with this new branding, great players, like smash the first split. Splyce took them a split to do it, but they ended up in the finals against G2. I think anybody at the end of 2015 that said 2016 summer is going to be G2 versus Splyce in the finals, and it's going to look great.
Yeah, it was a total turnaround. I mean, and they didn't make many changes, too. This is a roster that only swapped their support. Remember, they used to be an all-Danish squad, but then they swapped in Mickey X. He kind of hit the rift, and he wasn't just like a magical ingredient that just suddenly made them an insane team, but they kind of just took their time to click. They just got better. It was such a big turnaround for this team, and it was incredible, but, you know, looks like we're still in a bit of a rut here. So while on-stage officials are getting us ready for picks and bans, Dracos and Deficio, what are you guys looking for in this draft?
For a couple different things right now. And I think the big one is, we talked about it at the start of the day, we did not see it in game one, and I want to see more carries coming out on the top lane, and I'd like to see from either side. Now, admittedly, Wonder had a massive playmaking champ in form of the Gragas, but we didn't see, I mean, I could read off his champion pool to you, but it's very large. It's ridiculous the number of things he can play.
The man played Talia top lane last split.
Yes, and I kind of want to see more carry onus shifted on him, because I think that's a way to adapt to draft, but is there really any pressure to change from Splyce after that game one?
I mean, not really. I don't think it's like super black and white. He has to play a carry or anything. Top lane right now is super counter pick dependent. So Nautilus is considered the best tank and like a really safe blind pick. So that's why it was locked in by Unicorns of Love. Not just like blind pick a carry that can get counter picked very easily. And then Gragas comes in as one of the picks people use against some of these tanks because of his % damage on W. So obviously that's why we got the tank v tank matchup. Now, what I like about Gragas especially, and also actually about Nautilus, is there's enough skill required to play these champions, and there's a big difference between a really good one and just an okay one. Maokai is the other champion where you can say, if you're just okay on Maokai, you can be pretty damn useful. Can you flash click W on a champion, you can win a fight. You can't do that on some of these other tanks. So I don't mind that matchup specifically, but yes, of course, I would love to see, you know, Fizz versus Renekton or whatever kind of carry matchup up top lane between these two guys. Overall, though, I think the draft was good from Splyce. I think the draft was fine from Unicorns as well. I don't think they lost the game in the draft. I think they just took a few chances, especially in the bot lane. And when you make that gamble, you can't make the early mistakes we saw from Hylissang. Because that's when, boom, click, it snowballs. 2 towers gone, Mountain Drake gone. You're now 3K gold down.
Okay, so when we look at this, if draft is not an issue, is it as simple as just playing less aggressive, looking for less plays in the game? Because I feel like there's maybe an argument that Hylissang didn't need to leave the bottom lane to go help out Exile as much.
I mean, yeah, I think obviously you can always cut away some of the individual mistakes that put you behind. Ideally, in this situation, you just go even all the way up and then you go into team fights later if you're Unicorns of Love. Definitely, I think you can cut some away there, but like, they came back into this game. They played some really close fights against Splyce. Like, this is the kind of game where it's 5% that matters. Do you have like a slight advantage because of a slight outplay in a fight? Well, then suddenly you win the fight now and you take a tower. You remember that top lane fight in the last game where Splyce kind of forgot Zillion ulti existed? They went all in for Ivern, killed him, Wonder ends up dying for it. Or so they didn't kill him because of the Zillion ulti, but Wonder did die. Unicorns took 2 towers off that. And they were back in the game, it was dead even. So when a game is that close, it's really hard to say, the draft, it's the draft. No, I think this was the kind of game where Unicorns and Splyce head-to-head in team fights. Skill, versus skill. Splyce won it in the end. Sure, some of it came from having an early advantage. I think the Gragas play from Wonder was almost perfect, which also helped Splyce in this case.
All right, I have just received an update. We are working on a backup solution, so we will be back into picks and bans shortly. But in the meantime, however, as we look at this, you can see there on that post-game breakdown graphic how close it was for the vast majority of the game and how back and forth it was. Now, if you're a team, let's say Splyce, you want to close this out 2-0, is there a way where you can just play this cleaner? Because it wasn't necessarily a perfect game from Splyce either. There were a number of mistakes on the team, over commitments, as you said, on the Zillion ult. Is there something that they can draft to kind of set themselves up for success here to not play into team fighting? Or should they just be happy knowing that they outclassed in game one and they can just try it again?
I think the fact they proved they could match, even beat Unicorns in some of these fights means that if you're a Splyce, you don't need to change a whole lot. And that is always one of the best feelings and one of the reasons teams like these best-of series is if you go in with a game plan for the first game, you manage to execute that game plan and win, you get confirmation, yes, this was the correct choice. We can play this style against this team. You don't have to adapt. I don't think Unicorns either need to necessarily change up a whole lot. I think we will get another game that is very similar to this one, where it's based around, an early game where whichever team can punish will get a bit of a lead, but not a big enough lead to just win the game outright. It will be big fights again. And it comes down to then the team fighting skill of these guys. Like, we had Exile talk between the games here in his little interview, mentioned how it's annoying that people still calling them like a cheesy team, and I agree, they're not cheesy. There's barely anything cheesy about Unicorns of Love right now. But he did mention a lot of how they focus on macro. It's all about macro, macro, macro. And while I can definitely see a big change in how they are trying to play the game, it seems to me that the biggest focus for Unicorns of Love is understanding how and when to start a fight, how to do it properly. And that is macro. That is definitely a big macro part, so I agree with him there, because that's where a lot of teams in Europe have kind of fallen short, is they think they have this game in the bag, they think they know exactly what to do, and then a really good engage comes in from the Unicorns, starts a fight with one guy from the enemy team dying very quickly, and then they kind of run over them left and right. They have good target selection, each member knows what to do in the fight, and that is where Unicorns of Love have beaten teams like H2K pretty easily, honestly. Yeah, we heard the off day from H2K, but Unicorns had 0 issues taking them down in the first game, and then in the second game, in team fights, they had no issues either. And I think that's been like the really cool thing about these Unicorns guys. There's definitely still ways they can improve, so for every team in Europe, every team in the world, obviously, but I think they can be very happy with the spot they're in at the moment. Splyce, though, on the up and up, and suddenly matching Unicorns at where they used to be the best, that is really good for Splyce.
And I really like the development that we're seeing European teams now that are both trying to master the macro aspects in terms of map movement and also mastering, knowing when playing the team fight is the right macro call, when you have a lead, when you have a team fighting composition. Because I feel like for so many of our teams looking at how to improve, we all kind of like look towards, not necessarily Korean League Legends, but let's say G2 playing the best, who can just play a macro game, who don't need to team fight you if they don't want to. And they kind of sacrifice their own development in terms of how good can we be at team fighting? How good, when can we fight? What are our item spikes? However, that is enough from us. League officials have resolved the issue on stage, so let's hand it back over to the casters to get into picks and bans.
Thank you very much, Dracos. It has been a little bit of a time to wait, but we are ready. We are ready to go. And, of course, always check your headsets. Important thing to do for you at home. We have swapped it out for Yamato Cannon, so he's all ready to talk in the ears of the players.
Should be ready to go. So we're going ready. We're getting ready. We're ready. Everything's ready. Champion Select is on its way.
Let's go already.
Yes, everything is good to go. We finally get a reset. Now, game 2. Unicorns on the blue side. Splyce chose the red side. 1-0 lead for Splyce as we head into the second game.
Cinder Band comes out again. The Shen's followed by Splyce, and that's another Fizz. So far, the same bands by Unicorns on their side of the map. That's another LeBlanc one. They don't want to let Exile get his hands on that.
Yeah, of course. Got the first kill of the game. Looked like it could have been problematic for Splyce, but some brilliant engages from Wonder on that Gragas. I wonder whether that'll get picked away from them, because you have to feel like they'll flex that Gragas off the first rotation if it's available for them.
A couple of mid laners banned out. As we saw the Syndra once again, the Orianna also followed suit, and that means Unicorns, they might get their hands on this Malzahar. A little bit banned away, its stock rises yet again.
Yeah, again, the same thing. Zyra is available this game, though, which we may see come through. Mickey has played 3 games of Zyra, but Karma has overwhelmingly been Mickey's champion of choice. 9 games played on that, and it's not the Malzahar we go for. It's the jungler. Yeah,
they go for Xerxes champion, and well, you talk about Ivern being a big champ for him. The Rengar's been not too far behind it right now. This will be his 7th game on that champion, and back over to Splyce's side. Let's see what they've got to counteract it. Varus locked in real quick and it looks like they might be trending for the Elise once again.
Interesting they don't trend towards the flex Gragas. I think it was such a big part of this game, last game at least, that Splyce could have looked to have built from that, but I do like what they've done is they picked strong early game jungler now into this Rengar. They picked a good AD carry. We've seen the Varus, the Blade of the Rune King build worked so well for Kobe in the last game. So it's not like what they're picking is bad. They're getting good picks at the same time.
Yep, the same thing. Talking about the picks and bans on the desk a little earlier on. So now the Malzahar is locked in for the Unicorns of Love, and with a few seconds, several seconds still left, they're contemplating a mid lane pickup.
Yeah, of course, looking for a scaling mid laner. We've seen a handful of games from Exile on Vlad in previous splits, but I don't believe he's played it this split so far. Has trended away from that, more towards champions like Victor.
Yeah, all things change, it would appear. So Exile gets his hands on Vladimir this time. Let's see what Splyce end up answering with. They don't need to pick their mid laner just yet. Looking at getting a support for themselves. The Tahm Kench has been a popular one.
Yeah, if they don't pick the Tahm Kench here, they would likely have banned it away. So leaving that top lane and mid lane matchup now into the second phase, that can be risky here, because if Unicorns of Love take away, you know, some of the other strong solo laners, the Cassiopeia may disappear here, or the Anivia may very well be taken off the board. Senkux is a quote-unquote legacy Anivia player.
Yes, indeed. Kassadin is banned away.
Kassadin's another one
that we've seen, and we've seen it happen on Splyce's side as well. And all right, the Rumble, that was also banned. Had to talk about that one. Big carry potential on those champions, but Wunder and Chachi both showed they don't need a carry to actually do a lot of damage.
No, they can do it on tanks, which might very well be the pacing of this draft here. As they take the Renekton away, Camille will be the next ban, you would have to imagine. And then Splyce, if they feel like Anivia is the matchup, or the Cassiopeia, that'll likely be the first pick. That allows them to then get the top lane matchup that they want, and basically have the counter on both solo laners.
Well, Splyce can get that counter. They'll be sitting pretty going into game number 2 when they're 1 up right now. Some time on the board.
The other force here would be Camille left available, and then you end up picking the Swain into it, but that's not the direction that they go. Splyce, will it be this mid lane matchup here? Would make the most sense given the draft. Then Unicorns will likely end up taking the Caitlyn for themselves again into the Varus like the last game.
Yeah, bottom lane may not see a whole lot of change, although Splyce have a different kind of support set up, so they won't be pushing quite as much early on. We'll see what all happens as last 5 seconds tick down. Splyce, Senkux says, give me the Talon again, and he does it.
That is not the direction I thought Splyce were going to go on that. I thought they would probably take a mid lane matchup that would be able to deal with the Vlad. So Talon, early game, should be able to pressure Vlad and then move to other lanes. Again, looking to snowball other lanes throughout the game, whereas Exile's going to need time on this Vladimir, get later on, and end up winning team fights late game. But Splyce, a little bit of a roll of the dice here. Ooh, and that's a different one from the Caitlyn.
Yes, it is. Lucian coming a little bit up in priority. Well, a lot of AD carries coming up in priority after all the big changes, but let's not spend too much time talking about that because, well, you never know the last pick.
It's likely Nautilus. And at that point, we'll probably see the Gragas in response from Splyce again.
Yeah, still some curveballs thrown this time around in the pick and ban phase. 5 seconds left, and it's the Nautilus lock-in for Visit Chachi.
Yep. Nautilus, so will it be the Gragas? Will Splyce go elsewhere? They do have quite a lot of AD, so it has to trend towards an AP top laner here. Ooh, that would be a carry matchup that you can play, but that is heavy AD.
That is a Wunder special.
Because Kennen, while obviously his kit has a lot of AP in it, it isn't likely to be an AP build out of this Kennen. So you've got Talon, you've got Kennen, you've got Varus. Yes, okay, there is magic damage that mixes in here. A little bit from the Varus, a little bit from the, well, quite a lot from the Elise as well. But Splyce going heavily into the AD route.
Yes, indeed. All right, we'll see if this is enough to get the big win on the board. Splyce are definitely looking for it here. They're 1 game up right now over the Unicorns of Love, who are trying to hang on to their first seed, but everything could change in this group B. H2K are definitely watching this one with a whole lot of interest, Stress.
Oh, they definitely are. H2K would love Splyce to win this. 2-1 is what H2K would love, because they don't want Splyce to gain too many points. But the Unicorns dropping points, that's what they really want here. Unicorns, of course, sat currently 1 series win ahead of H2K, and will this comp out of the Unicorns, which is a little bit more well-rounded. I like the Lucian coming in to supplement some of the early game. You've got your big tank in the top lane and then Vlad to scale throughout the game. I prefer this a lot more from the Unicorns.
Yeah, doesn't put them necessarily in one situation that they can only follow through on. They have to have a little bit of options here. We'll see how Samix does on this Lucian up against the Varus, Tom Kench combo of Copy and Mickey X, but that bottom lane, that's not been what we've been focusing on throughout this series. It's the top lane matchup, it's the mid lane matchup, and it's those two junglers. They have been making all the impact. Let's see if Xerxes can make it happen on this Rengar. Least, though, looking pretty good on Trashy right now. We'll see what happens as we load up for game number 2. Unicorns backed against the wall. Can they come back and force game 3? We'll find out. Well, the fans certainly think so, Stress. What do you think?
I think that we've never had such a close shot of that lizard on the Rift as we get into it.
It's a first today.
Do I think Unicorns can come back in this game? I think they can. I think this comp is a lot better. I think Splyce have a riskier setup than you would normally anticipate out of them. They absolutely have the opportunity to snowball this game if they can get going, get Wonder ahead, get Senkux ahead, and then never look back. But it's it's a tad risky here.
Yeah, well, sometimes you have to take those risks. Splyce certainly did in last game, and so did Unicorns, but it was a lot of high stakes, a lot of action back and forth, and even if it started a little quietly.
So one thing that we were talking about is magic damage sources in this composition from Splyce. Now, the one thing you can't really overlook is Varus Blight stacks deal magic damage. So all of this build with the Blade of the Ruined King, the Hurricane, the stacks up super, super heavy in team fights, then you proc them all with an ability, that will supplement some of this damage and curve it out for Splyce. But certainly when you look at things at this point in the game, not going to be a whole lot of magic damage to bring to the table.
Well, could be a problem for Splyce's side if Unicorn starts stacking on the armor, but that'll be a while before we really start taking a look at that one. In the bottom lane, it's just a few trades back and forth, just love taps.
Unless it's Exile, who's like, I'm going old school, give me cloth armor, give me potions, that's what I need to start this lane up against this Talon.
Yeah,
but Unicorns,
biscuits.
You can see the potency now of this Malzahar up against something like a Tahm Kench, who, at least in the laning phase, does get a good range advantage here, good aggression pattern. No, that's a weird way of putting that. Like, his trading pattern against Tahm Kench is pretty difficult to deal with for Mickey.
Well, could be in trouble here, but Kabi still has the range advantage, still able to punish a little bit. Let's see what happens checking into the mid lane right now. Exile, he's going to need some time, but Senkux is already finding ways to damage him. He might just have to burn it. Oh boy, he's running all the way into his jungle.
The thing is, Exile knew it would be flash for flash, and Senkux would likely kill him if he's stuck on top of him. And you can see Senkux will, of course, have that Corrupting Potion, get his health back. Exile forced to use a potion early as well. But Vlad in the laning phase can struggle heavily here. Up against this Talon. Of course, Talon has a lot of damage early on. You can see Senkux trading his mana for Exile's health and in turn Exile's potions that come through this. Vlad doesn't have enough sustain from his kit enough yet to be able to survive through extended trades against Senkux.
Yep, Senkux is going to have the charges on his potion come right back again, too, so Exile will have to pay for those ones instead. Trashy finding Xerxes in the jungle. They just trade back and forth. For the time being, Xerxes maybe wants to make the kill. As Exile still finding Senkux, there's the Blast Cone taken. Bit of a wonky trade down there.
Yeah, mid laners had come across, though, so Xerxes didn't really want to take that trade despite getting a good amount of damage down onto Trashy. Xerxes looked like he was pathing away, utilized that passive to jump out of the bush right onto Trashy.
Surprise!
Force that repel. Always got to be cognizant of where you're going around bushes against that Rengar.
Well, I definitely wanted to keep an eye on the junglers in this series, and they've definitely not disappointed. Trashy, 2 games in a row now on early game trying to snowball his laners, his own champions. See if it's enough to do it twice in a row.
See if it's enough. Generally, though, a lot of these laners in other games, when they're not playing up against each other, get a lot of advantages on their own. Like, Chachi and Wonder tend to do very well on their own. Chachi, however, is a much more 50-50 player, where if something does have a major positive outcome, he's going to go for it every single time.
Oh, he'll do it. He'll definitely do it. That's the Chachi thing. And, you know, as much as you have to give the Unicorns a lot of props for playing it out very cleanly around objectives and things like that, and what Excel's saying, trying to play the map as clean and close as they can, sometimes they still will opt into risky things themselves, but clearly Splyce are matching them that pound for pound.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about what Excel was saying. I think it's a good aspiration. I don't necessarily think Unicorns are the pinnacle of macro play in the LCS. I think they've been very solid, and I think there are aspects of their game that are very strong. Some of their skirmishing, some of their team fighting. But I think it's difficult to say that they're a better, like, macro-focused team than a team like G2, who, okay, they've been playing slow and steady, but generally when playing tough opponents, G2 are so difficult to deal with their objective control, setting up plays, looking to deny vision and take down towers. Unicorns do that at times, but I don't feel like they're doing it every single game.
Yeah, that's a good point. And honestly, it's easy to look at Unicorns where they stand right now and just say, man, this is looking like, you know, some of the best Unicorns play we've seen, period, because it's a team that's always playoff bound, but rarely do we look at them as being a top seed contender and holding on to it. But they certainly have the fan vote once again.
I was going to say, one thing is always for certain, the Unicorns, in the mind of the fans, always a love team. And honestly, they've played so well this split already. I think everybody underestimated them coming into this split. Obviously, the changes with Veritas as the AD carry, Samex coming in last minute. People weren't expecting that much out of the Unicorns, and they've come in and they have proved everybody wrong. They have looked right a top-of-the-table team from week one, and now Exile has to prove it as he escapes a gank.
He does, and Xerxes even was able to turn that one around. A three-man Hemo Plague is on, and they can't keep on chasing, but they are able to foil the Splyce attempt in the mid lane and actually look to keep on pushing here. Hillsang's only level 4.
Just like game one, the roam from both supports, both junglers up towards the mid lane. This time it was Mickey with the saving grace here, getting the devour down from Tahm Kench. Exile now no flash though. We'll see if that can get punished by Splyce.
Yeah, he might. Oh, there's the Shadow Assault. Exile, he pulls away. No flash. Sencooks was able to force him back once again here, and Hillsang will retake in the lane. But I think it is important to note how well the Unicorns have been doing with some new players as well. Samex is one of them, but also the other one, Xerxes. It was hard to know how much to expect from this guy coming in, but he's been tearing it up, setting a lot of trends as far as junglers are concerned. Now, can he make his escape here? He does dodge one cocoon.
Yeah. It's easy to escape when no one can see you anymore. On that one,
yeah, it helps, doesn't it?
It's just like running away. As long as he dodged that cocoon was fine, had flash as well. But yeah, you talk about how he was setting trends, like a very early Ivern adopter. Like super early on in the opening weeks of the split, and it worked out so well for the Unicorns.
Yeah, and it's not the only thing he's done too. He brought it back last week, but the first time he played the Warwick was actually against this Splyce squad all the way back in week 3, and well, it worked 1 out of 2 games. It was enough to take the series.
Yeah, and we saw it again last week, and very fun to watch. A bit sad, hasn't made competitive in too many teams. Not a lot of teams have given Warwick that love over the last couple of months since the rework. Well,
not everyone's willing to try new things, but Unicorns have never been a team that's shied away from experimentation in the pick and ban phase.
Looking for Wonder in the, looking for Chachi in the top lane though. This is where that focus has got to go. Xerxes here.
Yeah, they do, but they find him in Lightning Rush here. Chachi still stunned up. Xerxes hopping out of the bushes. Wonder is taken low. He's having to flash, and Xerxes follows him. He needs an auto attack for first blood, and he gets it. There's a trade back though. Both top laners lose their lives.
Yeah, Trashy can't quite close the distance for that second kill. Top side, it all went in favor of Unicorns at first, but then he realized Chachi was left on his own. Top laners fall, junglers pick up the kills, and Splyce want to try and get something mid lane as Unicorns were pushing pod. A lot of action in the lanes this point of the game.
All of a sudden, the switch starts flipping, and the Unicorns and Splyce, they both want to play. Mickey and Kabi looking maybe to get cut off here. Hillsang still doesn't have 6, but the Chains of Corruption were there for Kabi. As he pushed him back, Mickey's going to have to swallow his AD carry up to keep him alive.
Yeah, a lot of damage got traded onto Splyce there. Samex, you can see untouched from that exchange, has that Bilgewater Cutlass, the start of this Blade of the Ruin King build that has been prevalent on Lucian for the last week or so. So now Splyce, this was the play on top side. They didn't have the read that Xerxes was here, but they didn't see him anywhere else on the map. No wards in the lower jungle. It was a bit of a gamble from Splyce of whether that Rengar was topside. It was a race for first blood, and Xerxes won it by flashing on top of Wonder and getting that kill.
Yeah, Trashy was able to get a little bit of retribution there, but I wonder if he hadn't stuck around with this top laner, maybe they could have turned the tide on Xerxes. Guess we'll never get the answer to that one, but all the same, top laners finding themselves one death apiece as there has been a lot of action up there. Exile back in the mid lane here. He's been actually not doing too bad on the farm, but there's always the Senkuk's pop potential you got to watch out for.
Yeah, well, Exile's now mostly out of the woods on the part where Talon is just going to stand up against him in lane and just kind of punish him every time he tries to farm. So you can see now that he's got a bunch of points in that queue, he can just easily trade against the Talon, and as long as he doesn't get ignited, as long as it's not an all-in, Exile should be fine. He's able to push back the wave, opts towards that Seeker's Arm Guard first as well. And Exile knows his job, his role, is for later in this game. He doesn't need to win now, so the fact that he's actually up in CS is a decent thing.
Yeah, did the same thing last game, and he was up against the Talon as well, but he was on that LeBlanc, a little bit easier to punish the aggression that Senkuk's was pushing out. And this time is a very different story now. Unicorns, they are looking for the first tower on the bottom side. Mickey had already roamed into mid, and Unicorns have had a lot of wards to set this one up for. They want to try to make the play, but wary to this Splyce. Looks like they're going to try to close a trap of their own. Yeah,
they just got spotted on the Scryer's Bloom there, and that's going to call an end to this play, you would imagine. Unicorns, they are looking for the bot lane tower. That's the key thing here. But I like the response from Splyce if they can push Exile back away from the tower. There are 3 members of Unicorns here, so I don't think it's going to result in the tower going down. Bot lane tower is already gone to this Lucian.
Yeah,
Splyce looked top.
Chachi, he could be in some trouble right now. Trashy was tanking, but he is able to repel and dodge more of the tower shots, so they were able to take him out under tower. But meanwhile, Unicorns got first tower in the bottom.
Yeah, first tower and first blood of the game went over to Unicorns, so all of that extra bonus gold. Ooh, now Unicorns want to get the kill. It's a slow one.
Mickey's going to have to flash. He has gray health. He is going to pop an instant exhaust down onto Xerxes, and in comes Senkuk's tag in. Shadow Assault, Hylissang, he finishes the job on Mickey X, but will that be enough? Exile taking a little low. He has to get a heal from help, and that's Kabi flashing over the wall. Unicorns making big plays in the Splyce jungle.
Yeah, Splyce got that top tower. They lose a couple of kills, or at least a kill on the bot side with Mickey falling. Senkuk's had to burn his flash and get away from the situation as well. So Splyce, they're trying to stay even with the Unicorns, who have been getting that extra gold for the first objectives, but now Xerxes wants to put an advantage that isn't based on gold. This one's based on team fight power. Infernal Drake is the target. It's an easy take early on for the Unicorns from that opening of kills.
Yeah, not a whole lot of reaction Splyce can have. They had been setting up, making the play, a lot of vision covering the Splyce jungle, so after the kill, they pick up the Infernal. And with Exile looking to scale, that'll help them out the longer this game goes on. Splyce are going to try and look and stop this one, but Chachi, he's trying to get out again, but round 2 might be coming. Trashy takes the Blast Cone, Explosive Spiderlings there, and boom, goes the Cocoon up and out. Looks like Chachi, he's not going to get away from this one. He's not nearly as tanky as we saw last game.
And if that type of play happens later in this game, past the 20-minute mark, it will result in a Baron, and we'll touch on that in a second. This was Mickey getting caught out in the jungle. Flash into the Nether Grasp. It takes a long time, but eventually results in a kill. You see Senkuk's come back in to try and trade. Does not respect the damage from Xerxes as Senkuk's went a little too close and then has to back away. But the Unicorns of Love always take these trades. At no point are they backing away. They say, okay, we're 3 versus 4, or 4 versus 3, we can take this, let's go aggressive. And they get a kill from it. Now they're looking to pressure mid.
Yeah, still have a few minions left, but it's going to get cleared away courtesy of Kabi's piercing arrow. And man, as the dust settles, we're 2 to 3 in kills at 13 minutes on the clock, and it has been action on the mid laners really this time around.
And look at this top side vision. Control ward, yes, it'll get killed. Wards up the river, control wards in the river. Everything from Splyce is focused on top side, because if they get a kill past 20 minutes, 1 or 2 on the Unicorns, 2 Blade of the Ruined Kings and Elise turn right to Baron and say, okay, we're going to do this super quick. And they take Baron, they end up pushing multiple lanes because Kennen and Talon should be able to at least push out, and then they end up closing off the game. One of the strengths here from red side as well is maybe they don't even need the kills. If that blast plant's up behind the Baron, if you can fake presence elsewhere on the map, you might get a very quick Baron coming down from all of this AD from the Blade of the Ruined Kings.
Yeah, we still got plenty of time before that becomes a reality since it's only 14 minutes into the game, but
you gotta set
I agree.
it up.
They got to get the setup. They got to make it happen, and there's so many options for Splyce here. We saw what Wonder could do on a tank. Well, we've also seen what he can do on a Kennen, just not for a couple of weeks. And they might need it, though, because it looks like Unicorns, they were trying to make a big play of their own in the mid.
And here's the setup from Splyce, in the sense that they defend the aggressive play in the mid lane. They lose the tower. That was always going down. Like, it was so low from the play that Unicorns had just made that it was inevitability that Unicorns would get that. But they've played on the top side. Senkux pushes out. Wonder pushes out on the bottom lane as well. However, it's not a successful play. They haven't got further towers from it because Unicorns have been able to react now. Wonder's going to get stopped. So ultimately, Splyce end up getting slowed down. It's not enough for them to get a lead.
Yeah. Splyce do slow down for just a little bit, but they're keeping themselves very, very close in the goal. Despite being down a tower, despite giving up first blood, despite giving up the first tower, they have been able to really keep this one close.
And Wonder is so far ahead now. 1,500 gold on his person ahead as Visit Chachi has pushed back at the top side. Chachi can't duel against him at all. Yes, he's a Nautilus. Yes, he's a tank, but Kennen does very well now. Blade of the Ruined King. This is why you build AD, is you bully people around with the auto attacks and stun them with the utility that comes from Kennen's kit. Who needs AP? Well, you've got all of that crowd control.
You're not wrong there, and he's definitely having a better game. And last time around, it was a bit of a different story. Still, Wonder was doing a lot of work, but definitely not able to dish. Well, I honestly wasn't able to dish as much damage, but he was doing quite a lot anyways.
Yeah, he was doing a lot on that Gragas. Body slams with that Sheen going Iceborne Gauntlet route, trying to get it. I don't know how much damage just came from that Sheen, but certainly Wonder made Exile feel that a couple of times. A couple of kills where Exile was like, I've got 300 health, I can do this. Gets bopped on the head by a giant cask.
And it's true to the playstyle of both of those top laners as well, because Visit Chachi does like to play these supports. However, he still makes big plays with them. But Wonder, the man likes to carry.
He does. But the person on Unicorns of Love that you feel like has to love carrying is Exile. High kills per game. 0 so far, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends this game with 8.
There's plenty of time right now.
Because that's typically how he does it. He's on this Vlad scaling for the late game, which is where he's comfortable. Exile picks up so many kills in team fight scenarios that this Vlad is kind of a near perfect pick for him when you look at it. He's able to control very well later on into the game, and wouldn't be surprised if Unicorns turn this game around with one big fight later on.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget what he's capable of doing on this champion as well, since he hasn't been the one who's played it so far. But right now it's Senkux who has to watch his back. Goes in, Shadow Assault, doesn't know Hylissang's here just yet. Xerxes a little low, but game senses are tingling, and he's not going in for round 2.
Yeah, I like the Unicorns play here though. Moving up to the top side, utilizes Lucian. Short range on Lucian makes it difficult to defend, difficult to push when there's defenders behind the tower, but the fact that Senkux has been forced away means Samux pushes up, takes the tower. Unicorns re-establish the gold lead. Wonder gets stopped in the bottom lane thanks to the Riptide from Visit Chachi. And you know, I was saying about Unicorns turning the game back around. Well, they've been ahead in a little margin of gold for a while now. Now they've got a bit more of a substantial lead.
Let's see what they can do with it. Wonder, it's caught on the anchor by Visit Chachi, but not a whole lot of kill threat there. And you can see Splyce are massing around the Dragon Pit. They want to be able to secure Infernal number 2.
It's not only the Dragon Pit, they're amassing for a Abyssal Voyage. Wonder does get caught though. Rengar's here in the bot lane too.
Ooh, who's catching who? Oh, he's going to have to flash away, but you cannot get out of that ultimate. Wonder going down to Xerxes, and Mickey and Trashy are a smidgen too late.
Wonder, I don't know whether it was him communicating that he didn't need help, but he needed it earlier.
Clearly the rest of Splyce needed too. Mickey X, he stopped up on the bullet strike, and Hylissang even gets an ult off onto Trashy. It's chains on him though. Let's see what's gonna come of it here. Hylissang a little low, but he's able to walk away. 2-man Hemoplague, Exile coming flashing in, and they're gonna pick up Kabi now. Chachi still leading the charge. Unicorns have not backed off, they will have to do it now.
Yeah, Unicorns getting a great lead off this fight, and they punish Wonder for being too far up in the lane without any help. Splyce, they're running this side lane setup with only one teleport, so Unicorns of Love go aggressive towards the TP user. Mickey was not close enough with the rest of the team to be able to Abyssal Voyage in early enough. It's only rank 1, so they had to close that distance. Oh, Senkux.
He might pick up one. He's got almost another Exile. I don't think they realize how much damage he can dish, and Trashy still on top of him. Exile's looking to turn around with the help of Samux, and Wonder gets the kill. There's the parkour to try and make his great escape, but Trashy might not be so lucky. Samux is hot at his heels. Spiderling's following through, but Mickey is going to deter him, and Splyce just come up with a big stop. There he goes, throwing the shuriken, not going to get the stun off.
Didn't have that empowered shuriken, so couldn't land the auto attack with the W to get him locked down. You can see Samux could have got that kill. If he was being greedy, he could have autoed the minion to lower the cooldown on his E, dash forward, got the auto attack and killed Trashy, but he knew he would likely be dead if he did it, because Mickey was there, Wonder was there. That would have been enough to take him out. You can see Samux playing very controlled on this Lucian, has a good lead, hasn't picked up any kills from himself, but he knows it's Exile that's going to carry later on.
But Samux was mid, trying to push in tier 2 while the rest of Unicorns were doing this dragon. Maybe they would have had enough damage to finish it off, but all the same, Senkux came up huge, and that's going to get secured by Kabi while Xerxes came in to try and get the kill. There's a teleport, is going to get canceled, and Mickey X is a little bit low right now. The fights just don't stop. Stress Xerxes is going to get Mickey X, but he gives his life in response. Senkux Shadow Assault's out of there, and Exile still leading the chase. Gets one big Hemo Plague onto Kabi. Out of the pool he goes, and he's taken out, but he takes the AD carry with him.
Big trades all across the map, but the one that we didn't see because it was top lane was Chachi dying 1 versus 1 to Wonder. I'm pretty sure Chachi cancelled the TP out of Wonder and died for it. This Kennen is so difficult to 1v1. Wit's End Blade of the Ruined King is just going to eat through the Nautilus, and Unicorns of Love got shoved in topside from it. Splyce lost 2 in the mid lane fight. They evened those kills up. And ultimately, there's no real gain in objectives from that fight. Splyce took the dragon to begin it. Unicorns answered back. And it's quite an even trade. Splyce coming out a bit ahead because of the extra kill plus the dragon. Nice steal attempt out of Xerxes. So top lane, I believe it gets cancelled by Nautilus. Yeah, that was a hook onto that Kennen. You could see the profile, the portraits move towards each other. Unicorns of Love then continue this fight. Samux gets locked down. That's a lot of missing damage from this fight, and they end up cut away around a wall, and that means Exile ends up dying. I've seen this scene before.
Okay, well, while we come back, Chachi's able to take out Wonder, but he had a little help that time around in the form of Xerxes, and it's 8 to 9 in kills, and they've been spread across the board. It's not just in this mid lane.
I've seen that one before, about 3 minutes ago, where Wonder was pushed up in the bot lane and Mickey couldn't save him. This time, Mickey didn't even try and save him, as Wonder maybe has to play a little bit more respectful on this Kennen.
Yeah, he can definitely 1v1, but it's never just a 1v1 when there's a Rengar on the map. Xerxes made sure of that, and they were able to get another kill. But moment of breathing space, maybe not for long. We're just shy of 22 minutes in the game. And there is a gold lead on the Unicorn side. It is 1,500. Not a huge advantage for them. And there are Infernal Drakes apiece. Chachi getting caught, but it's anchors away as he gets himself out of the danger zone. And now you can see the beginnings of the European Baron Dance.
Yeah, we'll see whether they're setting sail for fail on the Baron Dance, because we've seen a lot of teams mess it up. But Splyce, we talked about their Blade of the Ruined King builds. I don't think they're going to be able to just take it when the Unicorns are still here. They have to be able to get a trade first. Wonder is showing bot side with no TP. That's a mistake. He's now going to come across, has Lightning Rush, can do it very quickly. But what this means is Unicorns theoretically have no fear around this Baron Pit now. They can clear out all of the wards. You could see what Splyce could see just a moment ago. And it's easy for Unicorns to take control because Wonder is the other side of the map. Now he's regrouped with the team, and Splyce have a little bit more security. Yeah, looks like a 5v5 though. Unicorns, they want to take it. Protobelt goes in. Senkux gets eaten up by Mickey X as Samux spends his calling. That's going to be the end of it for now. Look at how difficult it is for Splyce to take the fight. So we were talking about how they were decisive in the last game with the Gragas, and they needed that tool to start a fight. Well, unless it's Abyssal Voyage bringing Kennen into the back line, because you're building AD, you don't have anything like Azonius to survive. That's not your role in these fights. Splyce will have a difficult time starting fights off without catching with like a Varasol, which Unicorns, they should be safe from anyway. They should be. But should and is are very different things from what we've seen so far. Mickey just used Abyssal Voyage to regroup because he went back to get wards. Oh, Wonder flashed away. So is Senkux. Nowhere for him to go right now. He was locked down by the Nether Grasp in just a couple seconds to wave goodbye, going right back to Fountain, the express route, and Trashy. The rest of Splyce, they were caught with their pants down there. Yes, Splyce just couldn't get themselves close enough to save Senkux. It was too dangerous. And now Unicorns have turned this game completely in their favor. They're going to push the mid inner tower, and Splyce don't have the strength on the side lanes because Wonder has been punished twice Wonder hasn't even been able to take that bot lane outer tower in the last 10 minutes of the game while he's been trying.
But at least he has teleport this time around. However, there's still a good 12 seconds before Senkux is going to come back up. The question is, do Unicorns risk rushing the Baron? It looks like the answer is yes. As the word comes in, it's not going to spot a thing because of the control, denying the vision, but Splyce are looking to make the fight. Teleport not finished yet. Exile goes in, gets chunked, but he's Vladimir staying alive. Mickey's going to fall, and Wonder gets a massive stun, but not enough damage, and no follow-up means he's going down. It's a double kill for Samix as he unloads the culling into Kabi. Xerxes walking it out, staying alive. Chachi on the front line. Anchor goes wide, but it doesn't matter. They get 3, and in comes Senkux, getting a quick one to fire on back. He's going to have to go on the retreat, though. Let's see if he parkours in for another. Looking for Exile. There's the pool denial. In comes Xerxes. And those knives are sharp.
Yeah, got baited in. It's Senkux. It's only Trashy that remains, and Unicorns aren't going to chance the Baron attempt from it. But Unicorns have become so strong right now. You can see 2 items on the Lucian. This Vladimir has started to get really strong in fights despite not having the items yet to go alongside it. And there's no real damage source because, look, Wonder TP's into this fight, which if this is AP Kennen in the old days, you pull a Smeb here. You hit 5 people with the ult, everybody loses their health, everybody's dead. This is AD Kennen. You need time, you need auto attacks. This isn't even AD carry Kennen where you have a hurricane. This is all about 1 versus 1, and when you're 1 versus the world, it's not going to be an easy survival task for the Wonder in that. And honestly, Unicorns of Love just having such a big advantage as Splyce filter into these fights one after the other. Senkux gets baited in, and Unicorns end up coming out way ahead from it.
Yep, that's a big one for the Unicorns of Love, extending that gold lead. 26 minutes now on the clock, and Hylissang's on ward clear duty, but the Baron, it has been the big purple worm dangling in the face of Splyce, and Unicorns, they've not needed to honestly nom on the bait. They've just been able to take fights around it. Down to the bot, Chachi is keeping Wonder at bay for second-tier turret, and we have some time. It's teleport advantage for the Unicorns.
Well, this is the position that Splyce will actually be okay with here. Wonder's in the 1 versus 1. He's got a significant lead as long as they don't need him in a fight, because Chachi still has his TP available. So Wonder's options here are push against Chachi. If he TP's out, I'm just going to have to try and kill him or take an inhibitor behind him, because the rest of the team is probably going to die in a fight. So this is a difficult comp for Splyce to play out from behind.
There's the teleport. Oh,
yeah.
Are Unicorns going to rush this? I think so.
Is Wonder going to stay bot side? Wonder's going to try and come up for the fight. Senkux has been chunked.
Oh boy, there's the Hemoplague on. Is it going to be enough to pop his health bar? Denied. Mickey X swallows him up there for a second.
Unicorns are going to get this before Splyce can really react, unless it's a Hail Mary steal.
Trashy had gone bottom. He's coming back, though. Can he skitter fast enough? Mickey X is going to be able to not spot this. No, it's going down to 2,000. In comes Trashy. He's going to get denied, and it's smited away by Xerxes.
Good nether grasp over the wall from Hylissang, denies the steal attempt. And here's where you have to question if Wonder stays in the bot lane. Okay, it's like looking at things and saying hindsight's 20/20, you would have got a tower from it, but Splyce end up with nothing from it. Unicorns have the Baron.
Yep, they keep getting these advantages now. Unicorns are trying to even up this series after disappointment in game number 1. Sitting at the top of Group B right now, trying to keep it that way, but for Splyce, they played a difficult to execute composition, and at the moment, they're getting outplayed by the Unicorns.
Yeah, Unicorns are just dragging Splyce around the map, trying to punish Wonder when they can, attacking that TP, bringing him up to the fight when he could have been bot side. I mean, Splyce is struggling in that respect. You've got to look at it like, okay, Wonder is heavily up in CS. That's a good thing in the 1 versus 1, but when the game isn't about that 1 versus 1 because Wonder isn't strong enough with the rest of Splyce, you have to start looking at this and say, okay, the game plan from Splyce just isn't working this game against the Unicorns. Unicorns are playing around it too well.
Well, and the front line's in a state of flux, right? Because Trashy's working on getting himself the tank items, but it's been Mickey's job most of this game, and that's been difficult. They've been able to catch him, take him down 4 times, and now, with the Baron-empowered minions, they take an inner tower. That is 5-2 on the game. Unicorns keep on charging through. Let's see if Splyce can stop the onslaught.
We'll see if they can. Difficult to push up when there's defenders there, as we were talking about for Lucian. Samix has opted for rapid fire cannon. to try and fix that. Oh, here's the fight.
Oh, and they take down Mickey again before the Grey Health can come in. Wonder stopped up for just a second, gonna have to flash into his base.
Exile's
Solid by
going in.
Exile, and he's in the pool to deny the stun. The Hemo Plague's on. Exile gets a kill. Trashy's gonna fall. A big shutdown for Samix. He gets a double, and Senkux is forced to back outside his base.
Unicorns of Love, they're going to push in from this. Just like the last game, it's the first Baron that ends it because Unicorns of Love have put them in such a good position. 6-0-4 on Samix. He can cut through these towers like nobody's business.
Yep, and now that the minions are arriving, it's only Senkux to try and save the day. Mickey's still a few seconds before he comes back up. I don't think any amount of parkour is going to keep this game alive for you, Senkux. Down he goes, Cersei claiming the kill. And man, did we have a lot of action in game 2, but guess what? It's all tied up. We are going to a game 3, Unicorns of Love with the equalizer.
Solid game out of the Unicorns. There was this aspect of comfort picks, then you bring the meta in as well, and Unicorns of Love, that was a lot closer to what Exile was talking about earlier, about the macro play, about, hey, we're one of the best teams, in their minds, perhaps the best team at this, and they played very well around a split-pushing Kennen, and just never let Wonder really get his groove on. Like, every time Wonder was there early on, Rengar was there with the Nautilus, you 2 versus 1, easily get the kill, and despite Wonder having a CS lead, you don't let them play the comp.
Yep. Doesn't really matter too much if you shut down what the Kennen's designed to do. And Splyce, they tried for some trick plays of their own, but it just didn't work. So, big ups there. And Samix going out on a limb and taking the Lucian, and he didn't die the whole game.
Yeah, it was a solid game out of him. We've seen a lot of Lucian in recent times. Looked good for Samix. Unkilled.
Yep. Extra range on that rapid fire. I mean, they were, again, we talked about it right before the game was over, but the front line for Splyce was kind of mix and matching around because they needed the Kench to be there, but he's a support. He's not going to have as much gold. He's not going to have the stats.
And that's the difference, is like, there's almost no front line, because Kennen, like, the only front line with Kennen would be if you're playing AP and everybody's dead already. Like, he's not one that's going to survive through it, especially this AD build, like, which is a solid setup. If you can force the split push, if you can force the tank out onto the side lane, Splyce's composition should have done well, but Unicorns played around it beautifully, bringing Cersei to the fight and constantly punishing Wonder when he was overextended. Yeah, and unfortunately for them, Splyce anyways, it's 1-1 right now, but still, even though they can't get the perfect 2-0, they have a chance if they play like they did in game 1. And you know who's probably applauding the most from that result? Wait, I'm guessing it's 3 letters. H2 what? H2K. All right, we're deadlocked here in this best of 3 between Unicorns of Love and Splyce. For a closer look at how game 2 panned out, we're sending it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Pyra. I think for this one, we really have to talk about picks and bans because we saw massive changes coming in on the side of the Splyce. So let's just start by taking a look at the top lane matchup. Now we went from Gragas versus the Nautilus. Now we have the Kennen coming in versus the Nautilus as well. Huge shift. Yeah, and obviously that was a comfort pick now for Wonder, getting that Kennen Kennen split pusher up in the top lane. In order to kind of get to that point, I think we can just go through like the pick order. Everything we're kind of locked in. I think it's really fun to kind of break down the pick and manifest in itself. Like first pick, as you guys can see down the bottom, Rengar. Still considered one of the top junglers. Weaker than before, so you can deal with him, but he's still such a fantastic pick, especially against teams who like to play split push, and that we can talk about later. Rotation from Splyce, in some ways standard, in some ways surprising. I think Varus is still a pick that some teams consider very high tier, especially also on 7-6, small change to him, so you can still take him early. I'm not the biggest fan of it, and the least pick was the one we kind of questioned as well, being like, you don't have to show jungler here. But the reason they did it is because they were hoping that either one, Unicorns would pick Malzahar and they could counter pick it with Tahm Kench, or Unicorns would not pick Malzahar and Splyce could take Malzahar in the last rotation here where the Tahm Kench is and then ban out counters to him and get this super strong Malzahar dual lane in the bottom lane. But obviously with the takeaway from Unicorns, they had to settle for Tahm Kench. And this is really interesting because I feel like the Tahm Kench didn't help as much as they wanted it to do, and it wasn't like it was denying as much pick potential. It wasn't like it was used as well for those big macro plays. So for me, that feels like a big question mark. Sure. However, the EULCS, while we were skeptical as to what could have been, the pick overall worked incredibly well in the early games. when we take a chance to look at this first replay, you can see the Danish Huni Rainover, as they call themselves, making some Huni Rainover-esque plays. The constant focus on the top side does really pay off for Splyce here overall.
This is such a well-executed dive. Like, Wonder realizes really quickly as the tower aggro steps out for 1 second, it goes over to Trashy. He resets the aggro with Repel, so they get that 1 kill. And then Wonder gets a solo kill. Well, he sets up what could be a solo kill, but then obviously Trashy is here to ruin the day and get the kill with him. Notice a flash from Wonder, by the way, when he knows Chachi's gonna hook into the wall, bam, blocks it instantly. Like, really well played by these two guys. What you need to do as well with the Kennen carry here, we go back to the pick and ban phase real quick. As you guys can see here, they took the Talon against Vladimir to save that last pick for Wonder. They could have gone Gragas here again, like they did in the last game against the Nautilus, but they said, no, what, guys, we don't have Malzahar this time. We have time Ken's ulti can be used from mid to the side lanes, so let's go full split push. So let's last pick Kennen here. That's why they adapted, because they didn't have the Malzahar, because they had the time Ken's ulti to play pure split push. Issue is, when you play pure split push, as soon as you get into team fights, it goes wrong.
Yeah, and the issue that I have is that it feels like they were winning team fights. They built a comp that could team fight despite having some 1-3-1 elements.
In the first game.
In the first game.
Yes.
But this game, they took out the vast majority of those team fight elements. Talon, you can argue, still has some decent presence in team fights, but Kennen, of course, without an AP build, which is just not viable anymore, is just useless, completely useless. We saw time and time again the Kennen TP coming in. It's like, hello, squishy Kennen with no Zanyas. Like, are you gonna do anything here? No, you're gonna die immediately. It just it didn't really make sense to me. So I'm wondering, does Splyce now shift their attention back to just playing a team comp with more team fighting strength?
Maybe they can still play 1-3-1 if they get rid of Rengar. And I really want to give a lot of praise to Xerxes in this game. I think he played fantastic. The thing people need to understand is when you play these really squishy split pushers like Kennen, even a Talon, Rengar just destroys you. Like, he ruins your day because his ulti can be charged for such a can be charged so far away, and it's so easy for him to jump these squishy targets and he will just one-shot you.
Yeah, and we saw that when we saw once again Wonder kind of overextending, maybe not respecting the Rengar. And as we look at this replay from a team fight coming in on the bottom side, this is Wonder.
Right.
Thinks for a second that he's got the advantage here, but then Rengar, the eyes appear above his head, and he just knows that he's done.
And we call it overextending. Like, you were doing your job. You were trying to push this side lane. The problem is Rengar can just appear from so far away that unless you have full deep vision, you're not gonna spot him, and it stops you from split pushing. So because Unicorns had Rengar and Nautilus was set up the gank with CC, very quickly Splyce realized they can't actually split push right now. They have to just abandon this because they're losing kills in the side lane with the Kennen dying. They got forced into fights, and that's where the rest of Unicorns comp really benefited from that and started just winning fight after fight. So Xerxes and Visichachi as a duo, where we had early in the game the Reino, or we had the Trashy Wonder combo. Later on in the game, it was Chachi and Xerxes, and that's why we highlighted this top lane matchup with the junglers as the important thing coming into this series, because those 4 members against each other, like 2v2, are just so key. First game went in favor of Trashy and Wonder. This game went in favor of Xerxes and Visichachi, forcing the Kennen into team fights, which is where he doesn't want to be.
And I want to hit you with one last question. If you want to see a shift from the side of Splyce coming into Game 3, what do you think needs to change?
I think if you want to run your 1-3-1, Rengar needs to be off the table, but I think you should try and get that Malzahar again and see if you can just match team fights, because that seems to be the best way for both teams to try and win this, and it becomes this really crazy fight all game long.
All right, well, we're going to go explore Demacia, but when we return, we'll have the decider between Splyce and the Unicorns of Love. Demacia! That was off.
That was terrible.
You try. If you get it in first try, if my life.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, what?
Oh, actually close.
Who's catching who? Oh, he's going to have to flash away, but you cannot get out of that ultimate. Wonder going down to Xerxes, and Mickey and Trashy are a smidgen too late. And Mickey X is a little bit low right now. The fights just don't stop. Xerxes is going to get Mickey X, but he gives his life in response. They get 3, and in comes Senkooks, getting a quick one to fire on back. He's going to have to go on the retreat, though. Let's see if he parkours in for another. Looking for Exile. There's the pool denial. In comes Xerxes.
Nice. I need to reset.
Okay, we need to reset. We need to reset. Cage stop.
Okay.
And man, did we have a lot of action in Game 2, but guess what? It's all tied up. We are going to a Game 3, Unicorns of Love with the equalizer.